Good evening, and thank you for joining me here tonight on Open Chat. So today I want to talk to you about my mother and her journey. In February 2019, she took a bad turn for the worst, and we thought that we might lose her. Now she's diagnosed with myeloma, and the doctor didn't have much hopes for her after she was discharged from hospital. She was given weeks to live. And yesterday, my brother contacted me after my live yesterday evening to say that my mother was running a temperature of 39.2. And that's quite dangerous for an elderly lady, and she's been housebound with a disability, bedbound in fact, for a decade. So the only thing I thought to do was to just go straight into naturopathic action mode and get over to my mother's home with the ingredients I could gather that I know has helped people in terms of reducing a temperature. Now, I put together some sorrel, ginger, lime, coconut water, turmeric, black pepper, and sage with sea moss. And when I gave her the remedy, the liquid remedy, I was surprised at how she was really, she was sucking on the bottle quite hard. And she had been taking sips of water, but she'd really seemed to need whatever was in that mixture. And less than half an hour later, her temperature went down, and it was at about 38.2, somewhere around there. So we had some hope that she'd be okay, because she seemed to settle, and she had a slight cough, which wasn't bothering her then. She fell asleep, and she actually slept like a baby. And she woke up this morning, and my brother had said that, she was asking for something to eat. She had something to drink. She'd taken more of the remedy without any problem. She seemed to be picking up. And in the morning, her temperature was around 36.7 or 36.5. So we thought, okay, maybe it's going to be okay, because she survived cancer this long, and that was due to her lifestyle change, because at that time where she was really chronically ill and we thought we were going to lose her, and the doctor had made an analysis of her age and her conditions and the progression of the cancer, and with her having weeks to live, I just went straight into action. And she has COPD, and she used to bring up a lot of thick mucus. But I got her off smoking, and she was a heavy smoker, and she smoked because she was depressed. She was morbidly obese, and she was also on steroids, which contributed to her blowing up. And if you are a friend on Carol Fraser on my Facebook page, you'll see the before and after pictures and that story about my mother today. She literally looked like a sumo wrestler. She looked huge. Her belly was so big. It was a very unnatural looking, more obesity. She was very bloated from, lack of exercise, the depression that had set in. Her diet was not great, because she was asking for all kinds of, unhealthy foods and snacks, and people would come and visit and give her what she wanted. And she was taking an awful amount of sugar in her diet. My brother actually said she was going through a kilo of sugar a week. I could never think that was possible, but I actually monitored it, and the carers would say she wants more sugar, and they would put literally a tablespoon of sugar in her tea, lots of sugar in her cereals, and just because she wanted more, they would give her more. And those carers have changed now. We've actually changed agencies because there was a level of neglect going on, and she's doing much better under the new carers. And I put her on a plant-based diet, organic. We were fortunate to have an organic farmers market not far from where she lived. So I cut out all meat protein, including her dairy, meats, fish, everything, and put her on a high plant protein diet, organic, with herbs and minerals. And I discussed this with her doctor. And her doctor was in agreement about the meat proteins in the blood, which can actually, quicken the process in the cancer, make it more aggressive. So I took it out altogether. And my mother came off certain medications, and medications were reduced greatly as she was doing much, much better. In fact, I remember when the palliative care nurse came to visit her, some weeks after coming out of hospital, and having spent 10 minutes in my mother's presence, said, "You really don't need me, do you?" She has not even had so much as a cold during this COVID period, and she's really been thriving. And so up until yesterday, when she had this fever and this slight cough, and she'd slept well, and today she'd seemed, this morning, with her temperature reduced quite significantly, seemed to appear to be doing much better. So I contacted my brother just before the live. I contacted him earlier on in the day, and he said she seemed to be doing okay. But just before the live, I contacted her, and he was quite panicked and said, "Mum's not responding." And her temperature's gone up slightly to 38.5. And I asked him to put me on the live, on video call with her. And I couldn't get through to her. She wasn't responsive. She seemed very listless, very dazed, and quite weak. But I managed to tell her I love her unconditionally. And if she needs to rest, just remember we all love her very much, all of her. And she's left a legacy of her strength and her love. I mean, she's a phenomenal woman. If I told you her whole story, you'd be amazed at this woman. And we still have hope. We're hoping this might be just another setback. But it's a reminder of how she was when she was quite ill, and we thought we might lose her. So we're hanging on in there, and I'm asking for your prayers. Some of you may remember her story because I shared it, and there's been many people since that time that have come back to me every so often. How is your mum? How is she doing? Still in our thoughts. And I thank those who've been in touch, and she's been in their thoughts and prayers, and she knows. And I remember going on camera with my mum and on Facebook, and people were were giving her well wishes, and she quite liked the attention. And we're just hoping that she'll still, she'll pull through. She'll be okay. But it's okay if, it's her time. She's had a very healthy 2 years, probably healthier than before, with her smoking and the dietary habits, the depression that set in back then. She's had a family around her. She's been looked after really well. She's got great carers. Her family around her, and her grandchildren have been coming to see her, and we've had laughs with her. She's such a character. And she's a very strong woman, an amazing, kind, loving woman. And she's changed a lot of lives with her, by touching people with her generosity and her love. So we're just hoping that she'll be okay. But if she's going to go, I just know that she's had, in the last 2 years, a better quality of life and a happy one. And this is really a message to all, really, because cancer's not an old age disease. We can see that now. It's quite prevalent around us. And it's hard to think about prevention when you seem to be doing well and your health isn't failing you, and you think, well, I'm fit, I'm strong, I exercise, I eat well. But are we eating well enough? Are we doing all we can to really, support our body? We're not living in an ideal world. We need to support the body. We need to think about prevention, not just from an older age, but now is the time, at any age. And I've been doing some research about obesity in children, and it's skyrocketing. There's even streaks that are found in US children's organs, fatty streaks at the age of 10, from the age of 10. And this is why I advocate for the type of lifestyle that I'm living, and everybody's different and everybody has different ideas on health. But there's one fundamental truth, and that is a natural diet is what the body needs. And people have different takes on natural, but I'm talking about what comes from nature. It's part of us, it's innate, it's in our DNA, it's part of our DNA, it is us. And putting more of those natural foods into our bodies and supporting ourselves with detoxing and cleansing our organs. We need support in this time. We're not living in ideal times. We're not living in the times of our ancestors. And whilst we might seemingly be living longer, what kind of quality of life are we living in terms of this longevity that we have now compared to the much ancient times? And people did actually live longer. Our lives started to shorten. In Victorian times, people were dying in their 30s, 40s, if they were going into their, mid to late 40s, if they were getting there. So what changed? What changed? And what quality of life do we have now when we're living into our 80s and 90s? What quality of life, what diseases are we carrying with us by the time we get to those ages? We need to start thinking about ourselves now, right where you are, and just consider with the statistics of cancer now, if you go to the NHS website, it will tell you it's 1 in 2 people will die of cancer. That's what it says. Will die of cancer. 1 in 2. And how many of you know maybe someone close to you or someone you met even? Or how many cases around you that you're hearing about with cancer now? Are we winning the fight, the war on cancer? Are we? It all starts with you. No matter how much money we raise, it starts with us, doesn't it? It starts with every individual and how we treat our temple. I'm not perfect, nobody is, but we have control. We do have control. So I just wanted to come and share this, story about my mother and just reach out to you and appeal to people out there who scoff at, living a natural lifestyle and what's the point anyway, we're all going to die. But die of what? And what quality of life? What do you want for yourself towards the end of your life? Nobody wants suffering. And I spoke about something, diabetes too, for instance. So many people are pre-diabetic now. It's not unusual. And some people are undiagnosed pre-diabetics. And once you just tip over that edge and you become diabetic, diagnosed with type 2, it's no joke. There's no easy way back. There are sacrifices that you have to make to try and get back or manage this disease, like with many of them. Alzheimer's is not an old age disease. It's a deterioration over decades as to how we're living our lifestyle and the things that we're putting in our body and what we tell ourselves. Taking the whole holistic approach might be a joke to some people, might be nonsense to some people. But what's the alternative? Medication for the rest of your life? Struggling to manage a disease? Caring for a loved one? So we just hold on in there and we see how my mother's going to be doing, and I ask you to keep her in your thoughts. Her name is Hyacinth. And I've got so many stories to tell about her life. Maybe I always said it's been a running joke in our family that we should have made a documentary of her life and put her on camera, and that would have been that would have been really funny and quite serious. So I don't think she would have appreciated it. But there were times you just feel that should have been a video moment. So I believe there's somebody who's online here. Anthony's indicating to me somebody's communicating with me here. Christabel, says, God bless you. Thank you, Christabel. I appreciate that. And thank you for joining the live as well tonight. You know my story, because I told you my story yesterday about my daughter's case and why I do what I do today. And that story's been told from the beginning of my vocation as to how I became a naturopath today, from a nutritionist and herbalist and aromatherapist, from being an organic food grower from that day, and prior to that working in the city. And I'm very passionate about what I do, and I try to always provide solutions. I don't just give the news. I try to give solutions, and I help people and I guide people. But you know, the most work to be done is by the individual and their willingness to make change, and their drive to want to live a better quality of life. We all do. Some of us find it hard to take those steps. But there are people like me out there that can bridge the gap, and we're here to help. And we can help, and the rest is down to you. I'm supporting people right now, a lady with cancer. She's a member. There's another lady who has cancer in her family. She's got a breast lump, and it's growing. And she's trying to, it's benign, and she's trying to reduce it. And regardless of whether you have a genetic disorder in your family, you can make lifestyle changes and actually reduce the probability of you becoming ill with that hereditary disorder. And there's been studies to prove it. One of the biggest studies was the Adventist study and the Amish study. And I recommended a book yesterday called Michael Grazier, How Not to Die. Great book to read. Lots of factual information and research. And sometimes this research doesn't receive enough funding to reach policy stage. So we have to do a lot of digging and a lot of our own searching and soul searching and making decisions that are best for us. But the information is out there regarding all kinds of diseases, and in Michael Grazier's book he goes through the most common illnesses today, and each and every one of them is backed by research in terms of the studies that were made. And the revolutionary results that eating the foods of nature can actually have fundamental positive results on people suffering with autoimmune diseases. It's a fact. You just have to know where to find that information and, you know, make informed decisions, and just know that whatever you're told, that's not all there is. You can look at the options and explore those options. Don't wait till it's too late. And think about those around you as well, especially the ones, our elders. Look out for them, take care of them, because that could be you in the future. And learn from that. Right now, my father's going through a period of dementia, and he's having night tremors. Now, there's a lot I can say about that, because before he made a decision, a certain decision, he didn't have these issues. But it's become worse. And that's down to past lifestyle as well, but there's things that can quicken the pace. We have an immune system. We need to protect it and guard it and strengthen it and do those things that we need to for it to fight for us. And my mother's immune system over the past 2 years has fought for her because of the lifestyle changes, the dietary changes, the herbs, the minerals, the plant proteins, the phytonutrients, everything that Mother Nature has provided. And I mean Mother Nature. Not everything that appears to be natural is of Mother Nature. And if you really look deeply into it, you'll be shocked to know that there are things that appear to be natural that are not natural. And there's many senior practitioners and doctors that are giving this message. It's just for us to search for it and not be ready to dismiss it. Because what is the alternative? To dismissing, other, it's now alternative therapy. It's called alternative therapy, but it was the therapy of ancient times. It's now become second place, and many of you will understand that, and many of you will uncover that. So I believe there's somebody who's made a comment. Let me just check. So Christabel says, you've really got me evaluating myself and lifestyle. I think we come to that stage some earlier than others. I wish I had earlier, but I guess we come to that stage when we need to. I was pre-op and obese, and I was suffering with mild depression. It certainly wasn't clinical depression, because there is a difference, and I don't mix up clinical depression with everyday life stresses and depression and low mood, because clinical depression is something my daughter went through from a breakdown, and you heard the story yesterday. But I was pre-op, I was depressed, I was obese, and I changed my lifestyle around, and I changed what I was eating, and I took action, and to my amazement, it paid off for me. I never had to have a hysterectomy. And I'd been suffering for 2 years in pain with inflammation that had got as large as a cyst, as large as a fist actually. And it was painful. And they would just develop, it was just growing and growing. There wasn't even a time when they were reducing, they were just, and one had got so big and they had disappeared. All of it had gone, and I couldn't believe it. I really just couldn't. I couldn't believe in the time period in which it had gone, because I'd gone through this for 2 years, and there was a gap between, of 4 weeks, a month actually, between me having been told that it seems likely that, you know, they'd have to operate, to the time I was asked to come back for another scan to measure up again and see how they were going to, you know, do the operation. And I just went radical. When I say radical, I took the necessary steps to make that change in, you know, those changes. And I went on an anti-inflammatory, natural alkaline diet, and that was everything that was indigenous to nature I consumed. And it had disappeared. I didn't have to have the operation. It hasn't come back, and I haven't had any relapse since. I've been, you know, pretty much, I'm over that. I went into an early menopause. I had a high level of estrogen, and soya milk did not help. And I was getting flushes, hot flushes, sweats, so embarrassing. If any woman recalls, you know, the feeling of feeling so hot, you just feel like you need to tear your clothes off because you're so hot. You're burning up, your face feels like it's on fire, and then you just burst out into a sweat. And I was on the underground. And sometimes you can just feel completely just drenched. And the nights were the worst. Not being able to sleep, twisting, turning, hot, cold. And in 12 days, having consumed certain herbs and changing my diet, making tweaks, it improved. And it disappeared in 12 days, actually. All those symptoms left me, and I've not. Some people say they've been through, you know, perimenopause for years. And I can't imagine that, because that was horrible just for that time. Like, I was going through that. You know, I was just dying for it to leave me, and I didn't know what to do. And I remember at the time I was in touch with a woman at a holistic health store in West London. And she sold herbs, and she gave me some advice. She made some recommendations, and I followed them, and I made changes to my diet, and lo and behold, it helped. It went. All those symptoms disappeared, and I've been helping other women since. It doesn't have to result into these serious operations. It is a serious operation. Once you take something away, something has to replace that function in your body. If it's not medication, what is it? What's going to keep it functioning? And then further on down the line, how long can you live without that particular thing that's been removed? And it has to be replaced for life with something that's not natural to your body. And that has to sustain and support you. But it could have a knock-on effect to different functions of your body. And yeah, you know, I talk about my detox being fun and interactive, and it's going to be great, which it is. But it's also quite serious. I take it seriously. And those that participate and they feel the difference start to take it seriously, because there's a lot of people that have not looked back to their old dietary ways. And whilst we're not all perfect, and people may say, okay, I've gone away on holiday and I've had this and that, I went to a restaurant, it was a friend's birthday or whatever, they know fundamentally that that can't continue, and that's just for them. And in the long term, they've stuck to those changes because it's become a lifestyle. It's not depriving yourself. It's giving yourself life. It's supporting your body. It's, as I say, food is information, and we give our body information. Our food is the information that fuels us. What information are you giving your body right now? Just remember, if you're smoking, that fine, soft tissue in the lung that has to circulate oxygen around your blood is being suppressed by smoke, and that tissue can be perforated. My mother was a heavy smoker, 40 cigarettes a day. And she developed COPD, and part of it was from depression because she'd become bedbound. She was a senior nursing manager in a private old people's home before she became disabled and had to quit her job. And she'd been smoking up until that time. She'd been smoking for a number of years. She never drank a day in her life, but she was a heavy smoker. And she was addicted to sugar. More so than I'd say most people, addicted to sugar. She would have bread and butter sandwiches with sugar. That's how, bad her sugar habit was. She loved sugar. And sugar inflames the body. It causes inflammation. And it feeds cancer. And it develops cancer. Now, you may know by now, we all have cancer cells that can develop. Tumours that can actually start to develop and become cancerous. It's what you ignite your body with. And sometimes, if you're fortunate, you can outlive that cancer, because it takes decades for that tumour to develop. And in a study where they had women in various accidents and they did autopsies, they found tumours that were starting to develop. Whether they would have outlived that tumour or not, who knows? And whether it would have become cancerous, who knows? But it's there, and it's possible in any of us. And when I tell you 1 in 2 will get cancer, according to the NHS government website, it's not might get cancer, may get cancer, will get cancer. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony. Is it 1 in 2?
1 in 2 will get cancer.
1 in 2 will get cancer. We looked at that together. So that's me or you. That's how profound it is. And my mother has cancer. She has myeloma. And that's a serious cancer, because that can get to, that's in the bone marrow. She chose to make changes because I couldn't have done it without her consent. And she's lived, she's still living, she's been healthy for the past 2 years. So we're just praying that now she'll be okay. But guess what? If anything was to happen, she won't have passed away in agony. deteriorated to nothing. Is that how we want to go? No, of course we don't. I'll feel sad, of course, but I'd feel content that she didn't die in agony and withered and diseased. And that she managed to actually have a good quality of life for the past 2 years. And she still can. She could pull through. You know, I can't have 100% input in my mother's diet because there are people who visit her who feel that she needs to have a treat. And these things we call treats are poisons, they're toxins to our body. They're not treats. We've got to get that thinking out of our head, out of our minds. Look at days 1 to 10, where I've been showing you my detox meal ideas, and tell me if you do not see an abundance of treats there that Mother Nature has given us. Even ice cream, truffles, wonderful sauces and zoodles and vibrant fruits of all kinds that we neglect to even be bothered about or hear or know about because we don't even see them. Prickly pear, such a beautiful, vibrant fruit it's diabetic friendly even. You can make a great juice with it. Things like sorrel. You know, a lot of people, well, I can't speak for a lot of people, but some people like to have cordial diluted drinks, those concentrated sweetened drinks that you get in the supermarket with aspartame or whatever sweetener. I don't even know what sweeteners are in them anymore because I don't read those labels because I don't touch them. I haven't touched them for years. I just know that they're toxic. But things like sorrel, where you've got the dried heads of these flowers that you only have to steep for 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And you've got a cool, refreshing, you know, high vitamin C, immune boosting, beautiful berry drink. It's absolutely beautiful and it tastes beautiful. And that's what I used in my mother's remedy last night. Because when I was making what I call my natural, and I can't say what it is here because I'd be shot down. Oh no, you can't say that. But it's a natural booster that can take down fevers and calm down inflammation in the body. And when I first made this remedy, a friend of mine said, oh, it's a little bit on the bitter side because we're so used to wanting everything sweet and tasting great. But the bitter, the better. And I've got used to bitters. You know, the best things are bitter in life in terms of what you put in your body. You research and see. So I added sorrel to my remedy with the sage and the lime and the coconut, ginger, turmeric, black pepper. And in fact, there was one thing I did leave out, which was a little bit of cayenne pepper in her remedy, but it still worked. And I added the sorrel for the sweetness, for the extra kind of flavour. And actually, it adds to the remedy because it's very high in vitamin C. It's also good in terms of lowering blood pressure. And I can sincerely say that because people have told me that it's helped them with their blood pressure that I know. And I researched and found something about it. And then people have actually come back and told me, Carol, it's helped my blood. One man said the sorrel, he could feel his blood pressure coming down. You know, another guy swears by it. And a woman, she drinks it 3 times a day and says, yeah, it helps. It's brilliant. My brother, whose blood pressure's up and down, he takes it. He's in fact, as I left the video call with my mother, he was about to take my mother's blood pressure. And he said over the past 2 years, her blood pressure has been fine. It's been amazing, he said. Outstanding. You know, for a woman who in her 80s, because he suffers with high blood pressure, he takes his, and he's seen my mum's, and he said, I'm telling you, it's really good. And that's because of the lifestyle changes, the dietary changes. And this is an elderly woman. We've got time. You know, if you're not in your, even if you are in your 80s and you're seemingly well and you're fit and healthy, we've got so much time. And time to make the relevant changes to make sure that we don't become susceptible to these common lifestyle diseases. And there's so much autoimmune diseases. If you go on Facebook and type in autoimmune, look for autoimmune Facebook groups, there's so many of them. There's thousands of people in these groups of all ages. It's growing rapidly. We're not beating cancer. It's sad. And I'm sorry, I just feel so passionate. It's so sad because it's getting worse. But what actually gives me a lot of hope is that there is a huge wave, a huge change in people's attitudes to health. A lot of people are making changes, at least those that are connecting to me, because they're saying, you know, I'm glad I found you. I feel I needed to connect with someone like you at this time. And they're making serious changes. And that's why I have developed a platform called Natural Workshops for serious health seekers. I've had people who have been lukewarm about their health, who need to be serious. People who have been told they are a ticking time bomb, but yet they haven't made the changes because they don't feel that there is anything else out there for them. Maybe they've been told there's no other option for you. There's no hope. You have to stay like this with this particular disease and take this particular thing to the end of your life. And they don't look outside of it. And it's fear. A lot of the time it's fear. And it's fear that will kill you. You have to know that there's another way and there is hope. And if you are healthy at this time and you don't have any underlying problems and you're doing okay, don't just assume everything's going to be great and hunky-dory. Make sure it stays that way. And that's my message to everybody today. Please pray for Hyacinth and thank you for joining me on this live tonight. And I'll be back and see you again, and I will be sharing organic investigations. Thank you very much for listening, and good night.